Stonehenge required advanced lost technology. The sentence lands like a challenge from deep time. We'll test it fairly. We'll ask what people with wood, rope, water, and patience can do, and whether ordinary methods plus organization fit the evidence we have now. It matters because mystery pulls focus from human skill. If you believe a vanished machine did the work, you miss how coordination and time create power. The fair version of the claim says the stones are huge and far-traveled. Therefore, the builders needed clever methods. The inflated version jumps to secret tools, forgotten metals, or outside helpers without showing why simpler answers fail. First, the timeline. Stonehenge rose in stages over roughly 1,500 years, from about 3000 to 1600 BCE, which meant many generations could plan, haul, test, and rebuild. That slow pace matters. A problem that looks impossible in a week becomes workable across seasons and lifetimes. Second, the stones. The larger sarsens weigh about 20 to 30 tons, with a few heavier. The smaller bluestones weigh roughly 2 to 4 tons. The sarsens likely came from the Marlborough Downs, about 20 to 30 kilometers away. The bluestones came from Western Wales, around 200 kilometers distant, with sea and river routes available for much of that span. Now the plausible methods, one by one. Start with levers. A lever is a rigid bar that multiplies force around a pivot. Wooden poles under a rock's edge can lift a corner safely, which lets builders slide in stones, timbers, or sledges without cranes. Sledges ride next. A sledge is a platform that spreads weight and slides more easily than bare stone. When you put a sledge on a timber track and add a smear of water or clay, friction drops further. Experiments show that teams of dozens can move multi-ton loads this way at a slow, steady crawl. Rollers add another option. Cut logs into round lengths, set them under the sledge, and trade sliding friction for rolling friction. Teams then leapfrog the rear rollers to the front as the load advances. On firm ground, this works smoothly. On soft ground, sledges on well-prepared tracks outperform rollers. Waterways matter because water carries weight. The bluestones could travel by sleigh to a nearby inlet, then by raft or boat along sheltered coasts and up rivers, including the Bristol Channel and the Severn. From a river like the Avon, a final overland pull finishes the journey. A monument avenue that links Stonehenge to the Avon fits this picture of staged transport. Organization ties it together. Seasonal labor after harvest, food storage, and leadership turn a hauling day into a festival with a purpose. Archaeology near the site shows large feasts and temporary housing at times of major activity, which meant communities gathered power in predictable windows. Shaping stones is the quiet companion to moving them. Hammerstones can peck, dress, and fit joints. Stonehenge's mortise and tenon and tongue and groove connections show patient woodworking logic applied to rock. Erecting the trilithons uses the same logic. Build an earthen ramp, lever the upright into a prepared pit with a sloped side, tamp the fill, then raise the crosspiece using cribbing. Stacked timbers that lift a platform step by step. Each step is simple and testable. None requires a hidden alloy, a vanished engine, or a physics loophole. Now to replications. Experimental teams in the last half-century have hauled 2 to 4 ton stones with 20 to 60 people over prepared tracks at a walking pace. Larger blocks move with larger crews. A community of a few hundred can raise and place an upright using levers, ramps, and cribbing in a day if the groundwork is ready. The key lesson from these trials is not speed but reliability. Low-tech methods work predictably when the path is smooth and the plan is clear. Counterexamples help. People point to the longest moves and claim supernatural help, but the long moves likely combine transport modes, overland in short hops, then water, then overland again, with months of waiting for weather and labor. Others point to precise alignments and infer precise machines. Alignment with solstices requires careful sightlines and repeated checks at sunrise and sunset, not micron tolerances or modern optics. Let's separate correlation and causation in one clean sentence. Big stones correlate with the need for coordination. They do not cause the need for lost technology when levers and time already explain the work. Next, cost and payoff. Iron was scarce and not necessary for the basic tasks. Durable woods, plant fibers, and animal power cover the demands. Rope from lime bast, hides, or twisted grasses can handle large loads. When ropes wear, communities make more. The system is resilient because its parts are replaceable. Organization explains the monument better than magic. Leaders mark a calendar, promise a feast, and call in obligations. Weather and crops set the season. Hundreds show up because belonging runs on shared work. Over centuries, plans change. Stones move. Rings shift. Pits fill and reopen. and errors correct themselves as generations adjust the design toward what they value. What about the strongest alternative explanation? That the builders had a now-lost machine that made heavy work trivial. Extraordinary tools should leave extraordinary traces. Unique alloys, tool marks, or byproducts different from known methods. We find hammerstones, antler picks, timber impressions, ramps, and post holes, evidence that fits simple machines. The record favors repeatable human methods over a missing marvel. Use round anchors to keep claims honest. A 2 to 4 ton stone can be moved by a few dozen people. A 20-ton stone might need hundreds for short hauls or clever staging along prepared ground. At 5 to 10 meters per minute on the best stretches, a hauling day might cover a few kilometers. Multiply by many days across a season, then pause for weather and farming, and the long journey becomes a sequence, not a sprint. Admit the open questions. The exact routes from the Welsh quarries to the river are debated. Coastal hops versus inland paths remain under study. The mix of rollers versus sledges likely varied with terrain. We also do not know every team's size, every year's plan, or every leader's bargain. The broad mechanism stands even while details shift with new finds. As of recent studies, the pattern holds. Simple machines plus water plus planning scale surprisingly far when time is abundant and goals are shared. Here's a practical rule of thumb for claims about ancient feats. Prefer explanations that use tested mechanisms with many small steps over explanations that require a single missing leap. If a method can be demonstrated in a field with wood, rope, soil, and volunteers, it deserves first place. If a method lives only in a diagram that skips the blisters, treat it as a story, not a solution. Apply that rule beyond Stonehenge. Pyramids, moai, and earthen mounds all shrink when you factor in ramps, levers, rollers, rafts, seasons, and social organization. Slow causes beat sudden miracles. When communities stack small advantages, monuments rise. In short, Stonehenge does not require advanced lost technology. It requires time, teamwork, simple machines, and leadership that could turn harvest lulls into engineering days. The distilled takeaway is simple. Choose the method you can build and repeat. Extraordinary results rarely need extraordinary tools. Subscribe for more myth versus reality and tell us which legendary build you want tested next.